All right, we have an old friend of mine here, Adam Green, co-founder of the Progressive Change Campaign Committee, and you all were the first national group to endorse Elizabeth Warren for president, is that right?
We were. We think she would be both the best president and the most electable president against Donald Trump.
So what made you pick her over, I mean, obviously you're progressive, so that limits your choices by quite a bit, actually. I mean, there's this impression that all of the Democrats are super lefty. Not true. Limits your range, but why Warren as opposed to, say, Bernie or de Blasio?
So I think Bernie and Elizabeth are in a class unto themselves in terms of potentially being a bold, transformational leader. We've been partners with Elizabeth Warren for a long time. One thing we love about her, she's very savvy about which fights she picks. She's fantastic at building large coalitions, often including strange bedfellows that come together for things like consumer protection, or she partnered with Joe Manchin to introduce an expand Social Security resolution. She's very good, doing her homework, going into battle with a coalition, and engaging as a partner, and that's something we really respect about her.
So you feel
nothing
like
against Bernie Sanders, but we think she would be the best president.
you feel like she's the one who knows how to work the levers of government and actually get things done. Is that fair to say?
Well, I think that's true. I also think that in this moment, having a first female president would speak to the times. I think she inspires lots of people to get off the sideline. And there are subtle differences, socialism versus I want markets to work.
Yeah.
I think both of them could defeat Trump, but Elizabeth Warren's message I think is where a lot of voters are, and my guess is that she would be extremely electable against Trump.
So you think the socialism, the democratic socialism label on Bernie Sanders is a hindrance to his electability?
Honestly, I'm coming around to the idea that labels are never helpful. Whether it's liberal or progressive or socialism or anything, it's all about the issues. The same poll that shows that 20% of people call themselves liberal or progressive will show that 75% of the people want to expand Social Security benefits.
Right.
Or 80% want a wealth tax. So ironically, no labels in D.C. is a technical term for people that want minimalist bipartisan solutions. I'm not associating with them. But I think that the more that we take the focus off the labels and put it on the actual bold transformational ideas that Republican, independent, and Democratic voters want, the better we are. And that's really what Elizabeth Warren did last night in the debate. I mean, her opening statement was pretty much saying the government works great for the big guys, but not for you. And she had a racial justice part of that. She had a gender narrative. She had a climate narrative. She had an economic narrative. And just said, I will be the fighter for you. And that's exactly what regular people need to hear.
I think one of the things that distinguishes her and does put her not totally in a category unto herself, but really does distinguish her, is she has a sort of comprehensive vision, right? The
Yes.
economic patriotism frame, which is core to the work that she has done throughout her entire adult life and career, and also through her lived experience, right? I thought she was effective last night because she was able to tie things back to that overarching narrative. So even when she's talking about climate or something else, it still is reinforcing her overall theme and message that it's rigged, that the government is corrupt, and that we have to have transformational, what does she say, big structural change?
Yeah. I think you're absolutely right about that. I think what she did in the debate last night is similar to what I've seen on the campaign trail at some of her events in Iowa and New Hampshire and in her Mississippi Southern tour, which is no matter what the question from the audience is, whether it's about housing discrimination or about wages or about taxing the wealthy, she ties it all back to her 30,000-foot big picture vision of structural change aimed at unrigging our economy and unrigging our democracy and giving it back to everyday people. She's extremely good at just tying it all back to that core mission of hers.
There's this idea that she's too professorial or she's not relatable, she's not likable enough. I mean, do you chalk that just up to sexism, or do you think that there's something else going on there?
I think it's a bit of misogyny, but also I think it's changing, honestly. I'll tell you, when I left the Mississippi Town Hall at a historically black university, I was getting into my car, and there was an African-American gentleman getting into his car, and he started talking to me, and I was like, oh, what'd you think of Elizabeth tonight? And he said, I went in there supporting Joe Biden. I left supporting Elizabeth Warren. I've never seen that Elizabeth Warren on TV before. And I think what people are seeing when they actually are paying attention in this year, 2019, is she's doing a fantastic job of tying together her big picture plans with her personal story of struggle, growing up poor in Oklahoma, being a single mom in Texas, in a way that is really connecting on a gut level with people in a way that does not match their preconceptions of her being professorial or wonky. It's like, oh, she really can connect with me. And I think as they see her inspire others, as they see her be the only person at the She the People Forum to get a standing ovation, and the SEIU Forum to get a standing ovation, and the move on for him to get a standing ovation. They're like, oh, maybe she's our best foot forward against Trump. So those who care about electability against Trump, I think, are gravitating to her side.
You know, I think that's right. And as I watched last night, it occurred to me that the Fox News viewer who tuned in to the Democratic debates would not find the caricature of Elizabeth Warren that they have been presented, which made me wonder if it was in fact a missed opportunity. I understand her reasons for not doing a Fox News town hall, but I wonder if that is a missed opportunity because she would have a chance to sort of directly burst some of that caricature.
Yeah, well, it's debatable. And you're talking to somebody who, in 2007, led the fight to get the Democratic Party to dump Fox as a debate sponsor. So I'm a little biased here, but also, it kind of gets to my point of her being a team player. There is a larger effort out there to make clear to voters that Fox is a Republican mouthpiece, a right-wing propaganda piece, not a legitimate news outlet. Her point, the starting part of your question there was Fox viewers tuning in last night. That was her whole point. We can reach these viewers in other ways. What she said, what she doesn't want to do is bring millions of Democratic viewers to Fox for a special event that they're making millions of dollars off of and selling to advertisers for the rest of the year as high ratings. I think that's a good movement thing to do. We need people in the White House who are actually taking a long-term perspective, and I support that decision.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. So what do you think is going to happen tonight? As a Warren supporter, how are you going to be watching tonight? What are you going to be looking for? Whether there's going to be a fight between Bernie and Biden, that's what everybody's wondering.
So look, if I happen to run a popcorn company as a PR thing, I would give out free popcorn to every debate watch party in the country because it could be fantastic.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people will be watching the Biden versus Bernie dynamic. Yeah. I don't think anyone will go onto the debate stage with the intent to pick a fight specifically with another person, but sometimes things just happen on the debate stage, and we'll see what happens. I'm very interested to see Joe Biden's statement last week that, quote, nothing will fundamentally change, unquote, if I'm president, held up to scrutiny by the moderators, by the other candidates, either literally or in spirit. Right? He's making not just a minimalist argument, but in some cases a backward-facing argument. Originally his position on the Hyde Amendment before he switched it was going backwards. Him sticking up for NAFTA is going backwards, the wrong direction. Big corporate trade deals. Him defending the crime bill. Him not getting why he should apologize to Anita Hill. He's not just going tepidly in the right direction. He's actually going in the wrong direction on so many things, and he's been avoiding scrutiny so far. So this is really the first opportunity for millions of viewers to actually tune in, get past the Joe Biden they know as Obama's sidekick,
right.
Get past the nostalgia and actually see what he's saying. And I have a feeling that some people will cringe and think he's not our best foot forward. And that's why we actually launched this website called switchtowarren.com, where we're putting faces and stories to the numbers we're seeing in the polls of people switching from Biden to Warren, from undecided to Warren. And hopefully there'll be more of that tonight.
And what has been your just anecdotal experience of which voters are switching to Warren? Is it more Biden voters? Is it more Bernie voters? What are you finding?
Yeah, I think there's a misconception in the media that Bernie and Elizabeth need to cannibalize each other's support in order to gain the polls.
I agree.
Yeah, you do agree. Why?
Well, because if you look at their coalitions, they're quite different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they both have more appeal among younger voters. There's some overlap there, but beyond that, they actually have quite different coalitions.
I think that's right. And their coalitions are fairly loyal, right? Elizabeth Warren started off as an underdog, honestly, and she's had to earn every point in the poll she's gained, and Bernie starts off with a very fervent floor of support. I think the two honeypots for Elizabeth Warren are Biden voters and undecided voters, many of whom are electability voters. They want someone who can beat Trump. Many of Biden's supporters are actually progressives who are just scared. And they don't need any further permission to bolt from Biden if they just see him do something cringeworthy on stage or see someone like Elizabeth Warren be inspirational. Yeah. They're ready to go. So that's not true with Bernie supporters. It's definitely true with undecided voters who are undecided specifically because they want to see who can beat Trump. So the more that Elizabeth Warren actually connects at a gut level, rises in the polls, has an aura of electability, success will beget success.
It seems like, and the polling sort of backs this up, that Biden's support is the softest. And so the easiest to pick off. And so I would say he's got the most to lose tonight. He's got a lot of experience. He's done this before, right? He's not going to be intimidated by the stage. On the other hand, his team has kept him pretty scarce. Yep. He hasn't been out there doing all the reps that a Warren clearly has been. Mm-hmm. She has made herself very available all over the country in places you wouldn't necessarily expect. And so is he rusty? Does he falter? Do people come after him? How does he handle that? Those are all the kind of questions that I'm thinking about.
Popcorn. It's going to be amazing. If I could share one piece of kind of internal data, we do a lot of surveying of our members just to keep our finger on the pulse. And 24 hours after Biden got in, we asked our members, who do you support now that he's in? And regardless of who you support, which of these two statements is your top reason for supporting them? You think they would be the best president, or you think they're most electable against Trump? And it's possible to believe both. Like, I personally believe Elizabeth Warren would both be the best president and is the most electable. But if you have to choose one, 95% of Warren's supporters said, my top reason, best president. Actually, Mayor Pete was number 2, 87%. Bernie was number 3, 83%. Sliding scale all the way down. At the very bottom, Joe Biden, barely half of his own supporters thought he would be the best president, right?
Yikes.
Now, to me, that says two things. One, that the kind of, Choctaw conventional wisdom that is thrown at voters all the time, is real for right now. People think he's electable. I think that might get punctured tonight and in future debates. But people are like, oh, I'm with him because he's electable. But the downside of that for Biden is his support is extremely weak, per your point. If barely half his own supporters think he's the best president, again, they're ready to vault the second they have a new permission structure, which is either him crashing and burning or others doing great.
Yeah.
Either one of those could come true at any point in the rest of the campaign.
It's definitely not a glowing endorsement when you're like, well, just beat Trump and then we'll figure out the rest from there.
Yeah.
Adam, great to see you.
You too.
Fun to watch tonight.
Yeah,
thanks for coming by.
Thanks for all you're doing.